It's Professor Dave. Let's talk about Gerald Ford.
He knows a lot about all kinds of stuff. Professor Dave explains.
Gerald R. Ford Jr. was a Republican congressman who served 25 years as U.S. Representative from Michigan's 5th Congressional District, the final 9 as House Minority Leader, before being appointed the 40th Vice President in 1973. He ascended to the presidency upon Richard Nixon's resignation in 1974. In doing so, he claimed the distinction as the first and to date only person to have served as both Vice President and President of the United States without being elected to either office. As president, Ford faced a nation racked by the traumatic constitutional crisis brought on by the Watergate scandal. The revelations of the many crimes committed by the Nixon White House stunned the nation, and Ford believed his primary job was to restore confidence in the government. He believed that an ongoing criminal trial of Richard Nixon would hinder the healing process. So, in the most controversial decision during his presidency, Ford granted a presidential pardon to Richard Nixon for his role in the Watergate scandal. Some suspected that a deal had been struck by Ford and Nixon, but Ford always denied this, saying he had concluded it was in the national interest to put the scandal to rest. Nevertheless, many of Nixon's cabinet members and associates were found guilty of criminal acts and went to prison. The pardon cast a dark cloud over the rest of Ford's presidency. Ford inherited the worst economy in the 4 decades since the Great Depression, with growing inflation and a recession during his tenure. His feeble attempts at controlling inflation were a program called WIN, for Whip Inflation Now. It was little more than a PR gimmick, consisting of handing out win buttons to White House visitors, and it had little effect on the economy. Ford had never been considered an intellectual heavyweight, and many politicians recounted Lyndon Johnson's crack that Jerry Ford played too much football without a helmet. A tumble down the Air Force One stairs and a few skiing accidents contributed to the public image of Ford as a bumbling simpleton, a perception that was reinforced by Saturday Night Live comic Chevy Chase, who lampooned Ford as a klutzy, accident-prone doofus. Compounding the hapless Ford's misfortunes were 2 assassination attempts, both by deranged women. During Ford's tenure, Saigon fell to the North Vietnamese, and the long Vietnam War finally ended. He also attempted to de-escalate tensions with the USSR by signing the Helsinki Accords, a 1975 agreement to improve relations, promote peace, and increase cooperation amongst its signatories. In the Republican presidential primary campaign of 1976, Ford was challenged by former Governor Ronald Reagan for the Republican nomination, and though Ford successfully repelled Reagan's candidacy, he narrowly lost the presidential election to the Democratic challenger, former Georgia Governor Jimmy Carter. Many claimed his pardon of Nixon had damaged him, while others said it was his weak performance in the televised presidential debates, where Ford committed a huge error by saying, "There is no Soviet domination of Eastern Europe." Following his years as president, Ford remained active in the Republican Party. After experiencing health problems, he died in his home on December 26, 2006. Ford lived 93 years and 165 days, while his 895-day presidency remains the shortest term of all presidents who did not die in office. Watergate overshadowed Ford's brief time in office, though he is given credit for providing a steadying influence on the country, and he remains the last moderate Republican to hold the office. Thanks for watching, guys. Subscribe to my channel for more tutorials. Support me on Patreon so I can keep making content. And as always, feel free to email me, ProfessorDaveExplains@gmail.com.